of the world's growth today. Like more and more people want to build their own thing and develop themselves. And I love also how you keep it down to earth, conversational and applicable. You had Nico on the other day talking about crypto. I love that episode. So for those of you listening, do me a favor and leave Michael a 5-star review so he can get his messages further out into the world.
Thank you for that, and I appreciate that as well. And yeah, I'm very fortunate that I get to speak with great leaders from all across the planet, including yourself. So I don't take it lightly, and I always appreciate it. And I learn just as much, if not more, than a lot of my audience members. So why don't you share a little bit about you? Because you do some really, really interesting work when it comes to leadership and how you approach it is a bit different than what I've seen other people do. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I like to say I'm a recovering illusionist. I arrived here in America with nothing but two suitcases and a deck of cards, and I rebuilt my career in magic. First of all, started performing magic with cards in local bars and restaurants, and $20 a night was a good night for me. Got my visa approved, and I started doing larger shows on cruise ships and television, and my career grew really fast. And to a point where I looked in the mirror and I was really unfulfilled. The dream that I had was the one I was living, but it felt really hollow just getting the audience to ask themselves the question, how did he do the trick? Because at the end of the day, I didn't care if they figured it out. All I thought about was what did they take away from the experience? And in that transition, going from crashing with my health, rebuilding my career, I had lost everything. And a person gave me the book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And I started reading that and I realized I'm not my thoughts. I can actually guide them. And in a year, I went from struggling, surviving on tips to producing these multi-million dollar production shows. And I realized it wasn't an accident. It had something to do with my new way of thinking. And I became obsessed with finding out more. So I studied personal development, quantum physics, spirituality, trying to figure out what the heck happened to me. And I made a decision at the time that I was going to quit entertainment, take everything that I had learned, keep studying, work with the best in the world in personal development, and bring together those two worlds. And that's what I did. In 2016, I attracted Bob Proctor into my life. He became a good friend of mine. He was recognized as one of the global thought leaders in personal development at the time. And he and I co created a program called The Secret to Real Magic. I copyrighted Real Magic Live, which is now a hybrid between a show and a seminar. We've helped 10,000 clients. We've generated a little north of $12 million in 8 years. And today I lead a team of 5 people who are all committed to helping millions of people in the future lead better, richer, and more fulfilling lives. And that's the short version of the story.
Yeah, yeah. You had me at Bob Proctor. I'm just kidding. No, Mr. Proctor, yeah, legendary when it comes to, and you were fortunate enough to work with him. And I've had the pleasure to know people that have worked with him, and they all say the same thing. It's like, what you saw, on the stages and in the videos and things like that was the same person you saw, you know, when you're just sitting at a coffee table having a conversation about anything. And
Absolutely.
it just, he would just one of those gifts. I mean, that's, probably the simplest word I can think of what, he has, what he did for all of us from a leadership standpoint or personal development or just how to live life and how to approach life. And that's the thing about it. And with, coupled with, the work that you do and the experiences you had, you obviously navigating, you know, two suitcases and coming here and with a deck of cards and manifesting that. And you're not the first person I've heard say this. You get to what you want. This is what I want. And you get there and you go, wait a minute, I don't
Yeah,
want this. And
exactly.
for a lot of people that haven't hit that goal, they're like, how in the world would that ever happen? I've always wanted this. And
Exactly.
I had the same thing, in my career, several times. So like, okay, I want to get to this. Okay, I did it. I look around, I go, I don't like this, or a real personal story. In our dining room, we've got a, a fan and a light on there, and we replaced one. And I told my wife, I want, the brightest light possible. And I was probably a bit anal on it, and I probably shouldn't have been, but I kept saying, I want it needs to be bright. I want it to be bright because it's a dining room. I just want it bright. So did the research, she found it, turned it on, get it all hooked up, installed, and all that stuff. I made the silly mistake, not the first one I've ever made in my life, but one of them anyway. And I said, it's too bright. I'm surprised that I'm still here, quite frankly, because she was not a happy camper with me about saying that. It's like, well, you can adjust the light down if you want, but it's one of those things you get it, and you go, I don't want it. And we humans are like that, and I think it ties in with which was so intriguing about the work that you do, and with magic and illusion and leadership and personal development is. I see people time and time again have this illusion about things which aren't reality, but for some reason, that's what they believe is true about themselves. And I know you encounter that all the time, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, it's great question, Michael. It's not who we are that holds us back really, because there's infinite potential within us, and that's what keeps seeking expression within through us and the goals that we set, which is the reason why once we get there, we realize it wasn't about the goal in the first place. It was about the growth. But there's that infinite potential, and so it's not who we are at the core, it's who we think we're not that limits us. All the wrongful ways of thinking, the associations, and illusions are just really things that are wrongly perceived or interpreted by the senses. And we create illusions all day long. In fact, I brought one here. I'm going to illustrate it for you. Here's a multi-dimensional domino brick. On this page, there's one dot. On this page, you see four. On this page, you see three. On this page, you see six. Your mind created an illusion about what you saw. Your mind finished a pattern. You saw three dots or you saw one. We never seen this pattern before, so we didn't see it. The mind finished the story. We finish stories all day long, or our mind does it on our behalf. Of course, the same was true on this side. You saw six dots or you saw four. The mind never seen this pattern, so of course we didn't see it. Now, as an illusionist, our job is to keep challenging those assumptions, and if I've done it correctly, you will see three dots on this side and you would see eight on that. But that's an example of what an illusion actually is. It's a story, a false narrative, and as business owners, we construct those illusions and we fall prey to them. So we think it's about the market, the economy, the leads, the strategy, when in fact it's about oftentimes our own belief in ourselves, our self-image, we believe to be true at the core. So the more we change our assumptions, the more we change the way we see things, and the more the illusions crumble. There's, generally speaking, five predominant illusions that most people have, and either one of those five is the primary. So there's the hustle and hype. I'm gonna run fast, work hard. There's an association in our mind that says time is money. So a lot of business owners kill themselves slowly. They just don't know they're doing it to themselves. What they haven't learned is to raise their value level high enough to where they can create what they want in the time frame that they want. Then the next one is luck. We stake our odds on something outside of ourselves, hoping that things will change, the economy, the investor, whatever. I lived in a city called Las Vegas, 5 years too long, and people travel there from the entire world to gamble on anything outside of themselves. And that's a perfect illustration. We have fear. A lot of business owners fear, constantly fear. And like Bob Proctor said, fear can kill you faster than a speeding bullet can. And it really can. Fear is a mental disease, and we can rid ourselves of it by integrating faith, faith based on understanding and a higher level of awareness. But faith and fear both demand we believe in stuff we can't see. But that's the third illusion. The fourth one is lack and limitation. So we're conditioned to look for resources outside of ourselves and measure everything that isn't there, as opposed to developing the inner resourcefulness. Like Bob said, we're already rich. Most people are just a little short of cash. So it's just a matter of developing a higher level of consciousness, and then we become more resourceful. And that's the real key. And the fifth one is knowledge. My gosh, people are so stuck. If I just need more knowledge. If knowledge was the gig, the deal, ChatGPT would have solved all the world's problems, but it hasn't. And so people still strive for the next education, the next course, the next program, thinking that that's the golden ticket. And it's not. It's the integration of knowledge with behavior that really solves the problem for most business owners. We already know what to do. Most people are just not programmed to do it. So they have that conflict, and it gets bigger and bigger. The older they get, the bigger the difference between what they know and what they actually execute on. And that's one of the things we work with in our illusion to integration framework, because none of us need more information. We just need to integrate more of what we already know habitually. And that's when results starts to change.
Thank you for sharing the chat GPT analogy. It's like everybody thinks, okay, everything's going to be solved. It's like, it depends on what everything is, because everything to me is different for everything to somebody else. And I think that in reflecting on this a bit, it comes to a situation where, you said fear or faith, both of them are, you have to believe in what you can't see.
Mhm.
And if you look back at your life in challenging times, and I have a lot of people that have been on the show, it seems like pretty much that's the common denominator for all of us. We've all been through something, or maybe a few things. We got through it, and maybe not unscathed, but when I turn this body in, I want it to be fully used up. I don't want to leave anything behind. Why? Because I want to experience life. It's not this fear I'm going to miss something. It's more of I want to experience things and learn from it and grow from it and say, okay, how do I implement this new knowledge with something? And yeah, there's so many of us, we're all guilty of this where, we'll see a lead magnet, we'll download the free PDF. Our download folders have hundreds, if not thousands, of PDFs that we never read. And now, although you could use AI and say, hey, summarize all these for me. But, that's a side pro tip if you want to. But again, it comes down to, are you just collecting information or are you actually doing something with it? Are you growing from this?
Well,
What's your goals? Go ahead.
no, I was just going to piggyback on that because it's important what you're saying. We won't integrate and we won't do things if we don't have a desire back of it. Desire is the unexpressed possibility within, seeking expression without, with, and through us. And that's where it begins. That is the cornerstone. Like if I don't have a burning desire for a better result, I just won't do much. I will gather the information, my body won't move. And I won't understand, I don't understand why I don't move on the opportunities, why I don't do the things I know I should be doing. Most of the time, it's because people fall into the A or B trap. So there's three ways of setting goals: A goals, B goals, and C goals. And we have established we're not setting goals to achieve them. We're setting goals to stay in growth mode. Like you say, when I get to the end of the road, like I want to make sure like I've had a fun ride on this plane. Like I really want to make sure I get the most out of it. So we are desiring better, but most people set an A goal is what they know how to do. There's no growth there. There's no inspiration. B goal, what we or excuse me, A goal, what we have done in the past, what I know how to do. B goals, what I think I can do. And that's where most business owners fall into that bucket of if I just do 10% more, 15% more next year, that's going to be great. I saw Bob once coach a group of attorneys, and it was actually a law firm, and they were setting goals, and they fell into that bucket about 20% growth. And he said, "Well, how about 800%?" And everybody gets a Tesla when we're done. And they were like, "Well, we don't know how to do that." Well, like, we don't know how to do that. He said, "That's not the question. The question was, do you want to?" And they were like, "Yeah, of course we want to." He said, "Great, that becomes the goal." And now we log on to it and we change the paradigm about what that means to produce at that level without running faster. They achieved 800% growth, not even in a year, in 3 months, because they started with what they wanted. And that's the C goal. That's what we really want. And that requires the imagination to get into play. But once we do that, that's how I coach my clients. It's always in 10x or more, and not for the sake of the number, for the sake of the growth. We had a client that went from 100K a month to 1.1 million in a month in a year and a half. I did this. I went from 40 grand a year to 750 the first year, thinking, what the heck happened? But it was all because we allowed ourselves to think, what do I really want? And that's why most people don't move on the information that they know they should be integrating because they have no desire for better. They think they do, but they really don't.
Yeah, again, I think a lot of it is fear of, and they'll say, well, I can't make, 6K a month. Okay, well, you already that's your goal. I can't make 6K a month.
Exactly.
Like, why are you doing that? It's like, or 60K or 100K or whatever. And you're like, wait a minute, why are you limiting yourself? How,
Hmm.
how, and again, a lot of it could be just conversations they had from their past, limiting beliefs,
Hmm.
not understanding, the power of looking in the mirror and telling yourself, 10 times every morning, I am, amazingly thankful and privileged that I earn X dollars a month from my business.
Mhm.
And you look yourself in the eye and you say that. And you do it time and time again. When you first start doing it, you be like, okay, yeah, whatever. But then all of a sudden that you feel it
Mhm.
because it's there. And then you proceed and you operate and you learn how to do things. My business, I started this with an idea. It's a concept. I'm like, oh, what I want to do. And I did this and I'm thankful for it. It created it, and grows. It continues to grow. At this time of the recording, in the next week or so, I kind of do all right, let's dream. Let's think. What do we want to do next year on this? What's really resonating with us? What are those, I don't want to call them stretch goals, but it's like, okay, what are some goals you want to do? Ignore, I don't think I can do this, or the economy, or tariffs, or throw all that out the window, please. Even during the Great Depression in the 1920s, people were very, very wealthy. They did very well. So don't fall into that prosperity or lack thereof kind of thing. If prosperity is your thing, it may be, I want to be in the best shape of my life. Okay. Well, great. And imagine that. What does that feel like? What does that look like? Just make it real. And when you do that, anytime those elements of doubt come in, you go, you know what? Thank you. I appreciate it. This exercise I do myself all the time. It's like if I have a negative thought come in or a depressive thought or something like that, I literally will, when I can, recognize it and go, oh, hi, thought. I'm not really sure why you're here, but welcome. I acknowledge you that you're here. I'm not trying to pretend you're not, but I understand you're here. Why don't you have a seat? I'm going to write down your concerns. That's an exercise I do. I write it down. It's like, okay, we've got it documented. We're going to address it, and then that thought goes away, and I continue down the path that I was on before that thought came to mind. And it's again, these are different techniques that I've picked up from either Proctor or Tracy or Jim Rohn or Tony Robbins or there's so many different people out there that have shared similar things, but with their own gifts in experiences. And again, it's for me, you learn from them and go, okay, how is that resonating with me? What does that feel like something that I want to learn more about? But have the momentum and the desire to learn, not just, like you said, collect a PDF and never do anything with it.
100%. Absolutely, I agree.
So in this world that we're in right now, especially we mentioned ChatGPT and AI before, what are some things that people can do from your viewpoint and your expertise
Mhm.
to navigate these? I mean, times always change. I mean, I'm old enough to see, before we had remote controls for our television, to we can watch television on our watch if we wanted to. How Get Smart of us if they're old of us enough to remember that show. But where do you see things going as far as personal development and leadership and all that? Do you see AI as a crutch, or do you see it, if used correctly, can help amplify what people want to do in life?
I 100% subscribe to the amplification side of things. I know a lot of people are living in fear, and I understand if you've only sold information up until now, I understand why that becomes a problem. But I am a firm believer that AI will help us amplify our work and that emotional intelligence and inner leadership becomes the currency of the future. So the human beings that have agency to set audacious goals and attract the resources and the network and the people and the technology and everything required to do it are the ones that's going to win. As an example, we transitioned actually in our business going from predominantly coaching, online coaching to live event based with Real Magic Live to create more experiences around it where we're focused on integration. Because at the end of the day, Michael, humans are humans and we crave connectedness and we crave learning together and raising our conscious level of awareness in unity. And that will not go away. That's been innately born into us since we were sitting around the campfire thousands of years ago. And so, as we're speaking to those needs, we will always have a place in the market. I have no doubt. What we can do right away today is make sure, and I've actually included this as in a bundle, not just with PDFs, but with tools that will help integrate it. Because, like you say, the world has not, we aren't in need of more pointless PDF downloads. I am a fully believer of that. So, the first thing I think we should do, make sure, like, and first of all, figuring out what's actually limiting us right now. So we've done this free assessment where you can go through it and figure out one of the five predominant illusions, which one of them is actually limiting me most at this point. Because like Bob always said, before you start charting the course of where you're going, you also need to figure out where you are. And we can set goals all day long, but if I don't understand what's currently blocking me from achieving it, it makes no difference. So that's the first step, is taking that assessment. Once we understand, now we can chart the course, and we set a goal, and we also learn how to, what I call, prime myself to be in harmony with that goal from an identity perspective. And that's not more information, it's actually tools that will help shift the energy frequency in our body to live from a different place. So those are the two aspects that I believe are really crucial, and that's part of our download that anyone can take part in.
Awesome. Yeah, I wholeheartedly encourage people to take advantage of that. So, Anders, I love this conversation. Where can people find out more about you, that resource you just mentioned, and anything else you want to share?
Yeah, so all they have to do is go to Real Anders Hansen, and it's spelled Real, so Real Anders, Anders, and then Hansen, Hansen, in one word, on Instagram or Facebook, and just find either one of the posts in there and type in the word breakfast leadership, actually, and you can download that entire kit for free.
Awesome. I'll definitely have that in the show notes. So, Anders, thank you again for this important work that you're doing. You're making the world a much better place. So, I really appreciate your time today.
I appreciate you, Mr. Michael, for the great work you're doing with your podcast.
Thank you.